I, 42M, still remember the exact moment when my perfect life started crumbling around me. But before I get to that devastating revelation, let me paint you a picture of what led to this point. It's a story of betrayal that goes deeper than I could have ever imagined, involving corporate fraud, elaborate deception, and a revenge plan that would shake our entire social circle to its core. First, let me take you back to where it all began. The year was 2006, and I was completing my master's in computer science at MIT. That's where I first met Melanie, 39F, at a charity hackathon I was organizing. She wasn't a tech person, she was getting her MBA with a focus on marketing, but she had volunteered to help coordinate the event's PR. I still remember how she confidently walked into our first planning meeting, wearing a crisp white blazer and carrying a stack of promotional materials she had already designed. "Your event has amazing potential," she said, spreading out professional-looking mock-ups across the table. "But your marketing strategy needs serious work. Let me help you reach more people." I was impressed not just by her initiative, but by how she seemed to genuinely care about the cause. We were raising money for children's cancer research. Over the next few weeks of planning, we grew closer. She was brilliant at her job, turning our small hackathon into a major campus event that attracted sponsors and media attention. Our first date wasn't actually meant to be a date. We were working late one night, finalizing event details, when she suggested getting coffee to help us stay awake. That coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into a walk along the Charles River. We talked for hours about our dreams, our families, our aspirations. She told me about growing up in Connecticut with her ambitious mother and passive father, about wanting to prove herself in the corporate world. I shared my passion for technology and my dream of building software that could change lives. The hackathon was a huge success, raising over $50,000 for the Children's Hospital. During the closing ceremony, Melanie surprised everyone by announcing she had secured matching donations from 3 major tech companies, doubling our impact. I think that's when I first fell in love with her, seeing her passion for making a difference. We dated through our final year of graduate school. Our relationship seemed perfect, we balanced each other out. I was the technical introvert, she was the social butterfly. I focused on building things, she focused on selling them. We talked about starting a company together someday, combining our skills. After graduation, we both landed jobs in Boston. I joined a promising tech startup as a senior developer, while she secured a position in a marketing firm. We moved in together, adopting a golden retriever named Charlie, who passed away 5 years ago. Still miss that good boy. Our life seemed to be following a perfect script. The proposal came 2 years later. I had spent months planning it, coordinating with her favorite restaurant to create a custom menu that recreated dishes from all our memorable dates. The ring was her dream design, a vintage-inspired emerald-cut diamond that I spent 6 months' salary on. She cried when I got down on one knee, and everyone in the restaurant applauded. Our wedding in the Berkshires was everything she had dreamed of. 200 guests, a weekend-long celebration, no expense spared. Her mother, Diana, took control of most of the planning, which should have been my first red flag. Diana was obsessed with appearances, constantly pushing Melanie to aim higher and secure her future. But I was too in love to see the warning signs. The first few years of marriage were good, at least, I thought they were. We both focused on our careers, supporting each other's advancement. When I got the opportunity to join a larger tech company as a lead developer, Melanie was enthusiastic about the move. She even leveraged her marketing experience to land a position in the same company 6 months later. That's where things started getting interesting, though I wouldn't realize the full extent of it until much later. Melanie quickly made a name for herself in the marketing department. She had a talent for networking, always attending industry events and building relationships with key people. Within 3 years, she had risen to marketing director, and 2 years after that, she became executive vice president of marketing. I was proud of her success, even when she started working longer hours and attending more mandatory evening events. She would come home excited about new marketing initiatives and partnerships she was developing. I now know those late nights weren't all about work, and those partnerships weren't all legitimate. Our social life revolved around corporate events and dinner parties with colleagues. Melanie was masterful at hosting, turning our home into a showcase of successful corporate life. Every detail was perfectly curated, from the wine selection to the topic of conversation. We were seen as the power couple of the company, something she thoroughly enjoyed. Looking back, I can see how she was building her network of enablers and allies. Every dinner party, every weekend getaway with colleagues, every charity gala, they were all part of her elaborate scheme. She was creating a web of relationships she could leverage later, establishing herself as beyond reproach. But let me tell you about the day everything changed. It was our 15th wedding anniversary, and I had spent months planning the perfect surprise. Melanie had been dropping hints about wanting a Tesla Model Y, talking about environmental consciousness and corporate responsibility. I had secretly been saving up, cutting back on my own expenses and taking on additional consulting work to make it happen. The day started perfectly. I had the Tesla delivered early morning, complete with a giant red bow on top. Melanie was having her morning coffee on our front porch, a daily ritual she maintained religiously, when the delivery truck pulled up. Her reaction seemed genuine, the squeal of delight, the tears of joy, the tight hug that seemed to last forever. She insisted on taking it for a test drive immediately, and we spent the morning cruising around the suburbs, her practically glowing with excitement. She took dozens of photos for social media, crafting the perfect post about having the most thoughtful husband in the world. The caption was a masterpiece of subtle bragging, talking about our 15 years of growing together and how blessed she was. That evening, instead of going to the fancy restaurant I had booked, she suggested we have an intimate dinner at home. She wanted to cook her special herb-crusted salmon, a dish she usually reserved for impressing important guests. I thought it was sweet that she wanted to make the evening more personal. She decorated the dining room beautifully, with candles and fresh flowers. She even brought out the expensive china we had received as wedding gifts but rarely used. The meal was perfect, accompanied by an expensive bottle of champagne she had been saving for a special occasion. Looking back, there were subtle signs I missed. She barely touched her champagne, claiming she had a slight headache. She kept checking her phone, saying she was sharing anniversary photos with friends. Around 10 p.m., she said the headache was getting worse and went to bed early, leaving me to clean up. The next day, I decided to work from home. As CTO, I had that flexibility, and I wanted to extend our celebration weekend. I was in my home office around 11 a.m., reviewing code for an important project launch, when my world shattered. Through my partially open office window, I heard Melanie's voice from the garden. She was sitting on the antique iron bench, a $3,000 piece she had insisted on buying during our trip to Provence last year. The moment that followed would forever change my life. "Mom, you won't believe how gullible he is," she laughed, her voice dripping with contempt. "A whole Tesla. And he has no idea about anything. I mean, the timing couldn't be better with the baby coming. He'll raise another man's child thinking it's his, just like those pathetic men in those TV shows you watch." My hands froze over my keyboard. The project specifications I had been reviewing blurred before my eyes. "No, Mom, don't worry. We haven't been intimate in 6 months, I've been making excuses about stress at work and headaches. When I tell him about the pregnancy next week, he'll just assume it happened during our anniversary night. I've got it all planned out." Then came the part that made my stomach turn. "Besides," she continued, "once everything at work goes according to plan, we'll be set for life. The offshore accounts are almost untraceable. Greg's team has done an amazing job setting up the shell companies. In a year or two, I'll file for divorce claiming emotional neglect. Everyone knows how absorbed he is in his work. With his reputation as a workaholic, it'll be totally believable. Greg. Our company's deputy marketing director." The pieces started falling into place, the late-night strategy meetings, the frequent business trips, the new marketing partnerships that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. "The timing is perfect, Mom. By the time anyone realizes what's happening with the marketing budgets, the money will be long gone. And with a baby in the picture, I'll get half his assets plus child support. He'll be too destroyed by the divorce to even notice the company investigation." I sat there, my coffee growing cold, as 15 years of memories reorganized themselves into a new, horrifying pattern. The charity hackathon where we met, had she targeted me because of my technical skills and career potential? Our wedding, had it all been a calculated move in her long-term plan? Every dinner party, every social event, every late-night work meeting, had they all been pieces in her elaborate scheme? But I'm a problem solver by nature. It's what made me successful in my career, and it's what would help me now. Instead of confronting her immediately, I began to plan. First, I called in sick for the next 3 days, claiming a severe stomach bug. While Melanie was at work, I set up multiple hidden cameras in our common areas, with proper legal notices discreetly placed, as required by law. Installed advanced security systems in my home office. Created new, secure email accounts and communication channels. Started documenting everything meticulously. Next, I contacted Sarah Hamilton, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Boston. Her reputation for handling high-profile cases involving fraud was legendary. During our first meeting in a private room at the Four Seasons, paid in cash, I laid out everything I knew and suspected. Sarah's eyes lit up. "This is bigger than just a divorce case," she said, leaning forward. "We're looking at corporate fraud, potential RICO violations, and possibly international financial crimes. We need to move carefully and gather evidence systematically." Following her advice, I hired Magnus Investigations, a discreet forensic accounting firm. Established new bank accounts at different institutions. Began moving my assets strategically. Purchased multiple DNA test kits. Started seeing Dr. Marcus, a therapist recommended by Sarah, to document my mental state. Set up a secure cloud storage system for all evidence. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy at home and work. Every morning, I kissed Melanie goodbye. Every evening, I listened to her stories about her day, knowing each word might be a lie. I even started complimenting her more frequently, playing into her perception of me as an oblivious husband. The pregnancy announcement came exactly as she had planned, during our Sunday brunch tradition. She had prepared my favorite blueberry pancakes, adding a touching detail about using my grandmother's recipe. As I took my first bite, she revealed the wonderful news. My performance deserved an Oscar. I dropped my fork in surprise, rushed to embrace her, shed tears of joy. I even called our parents immediately to share the news. All while hidden cameras captured every moment of her calculated performance. Meanwhile, Magnus Investigations was uncovering a scheme more elaborate than I had imagined. Melanie, along with Greg and 3 other marketing department members, had created a network of shell companies across 5 countries. They had been diverting marketing budgets through fake consultancy contracts, inflating vendor invoices, and channeling the difference through multiple offshore accounts. The total amount? Not just $487,000 as initially suspected, but close to $2.3 million over 3 years. Through our home security system, I captured dozens of incriminating conversations. Melanie regularly discussed the scheme with her co-conspirators during our dinner parties, using our home as a safe space because she thought I was too preoccupied with technical discussions to notice anything suspicious. One particularly damning conversation occurred during what she thought was a private lunch with Sandra, her closest friend from the marketing department. The cameras caught everything. "Sandra, are you sure the accounts are untraceable?" "Melanie, Greg's contact in the Cayman Islands guaranteed it. Besides, by the time anyone notices, I'll be long gone. The baby is my insurance policy." "Sandra, what about the new compliance audit?" "Melanie, please, I helped design the audit process. I know exactly how to work around it." The evidence kept mounting. The forensic accountants discovered that Melanie had been laying the groundwork for this scheme even before she joined the company. Her entire career progression had been carefully orchestrated to reach a position where she could manipulate marketing budgets without scrutiny. While all this was happening, Melanie was planning an elaborate baby shower. She hired an expensive event planner, invited over 50 guests, and transformed our house into a Pinterest-perfect celebration space. The theme was, "A New Chapter Begins." The irony was not lost on me. The guest list included family, friends, colleagues, including her co-conspirators, and even the company's CEO and his wife. The total cost for the event was over $15,000, probably paid for with stolen money, I realized. On the day of the shower, I played my role perfectly. I helped set up decorations, greeted guests warmly, and played the excited father-to-be. Melanie was in her element, accepting gifts and compliments with practiced grace. Her mother, Diana, kept shooting me self-satisfied smiles, no doubt thinking about that garden phone conversation. The time came for opening gifts, and as tradition dictated, the father-to-be was asked to say a few words. This was the moment I had spent months preparing for. I stood up, champagne glass in hand, and smiled at the gathered crowd. "I want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate this special moment," I began, my voice steady and clear. "Melanie, you've given me so many surprises lately. Now it's my turn to share a few surprises of my own." The room fell silent as I pulled out a leather portfolio. "First, I'd like to share some interesting documents I've gathered. We have here evidence of a fraudulent consultancy scheme that has stolen approximately $2.3 million from the company over the past 3 years. The FBI, SEC, and Interpol have all been notified and are very interested in speaking with everyone involved." Melanie's face went from confusion to horror as I continued. "Next, we have divorce papers, already filed. And finally, a court order freezing all assets connected to Melanie Thompson, Gregory Phillips, Sandra Martinez, and their associated shell companies pending investigation." I turned to our CEO, who was looking thunderstruck. "John, you'll find a complete report of the fraud scheme in your email, including documentation of all fake consultancy contracts and offshore transfers. Your new compliance team might find it particularly interesting." Her mother jumped up, screaming about how I was ruining her daughter's special day. That's when I played the recording of their garden conversation on our home sound system, followed by a greatest hits compilation of various incriminating conversations recorded over the past months. The chaos that erupted was spectacular. The CEO immediately called security and his legal team. Melanie's co-conspirators tried to flee but were met by FBI agents in the driveway. Yes, I had timed everything perfectly. Her friend sat in stunned silence while my in-laws looked like they'd seen a ghost. I wasn't done yet. "Oh, and that beautiful Tesla you've been showing off. It's been repossessed this morning. When you commit fraud, gifts can be reclaimed as part of the investigation. But don't worry about transportation to your upcoming court appearances, the FBI will handle that." Turning to the shell-shocked guests, I added, "I apologize for the dramatic end to the party, but I thought everyone deserved to know the truth. There's still cake in the kitchen if anyone wants some. I recommend the chocolate one, it was paid for with clean money, I made sure of that." Then I walked out, leaving behind a scene of absolute pandemonium. As I got into my waiting car, I had arranged for a driver, I could hear the chaos erupting behind me. My phone started blowing up with messages and calls, but I turned it off. I had already booked a suite at the Four Seasons and had my legal team handle everything else. The fallout was more spectacular than I had anticipated. Melanie, Greg, and 2 other executives were arrested within days. The evidence was overwhelming. The company's stock took a hit when the fraud was revealed, but recovered after implementing new compliance measures I had recommended. Multiple civil and criminal cases were filed. They're still ongoing, but early indications suggest significant prison time. The baby was born in prison. DNA tests confirmed what I already knew, I wasn't the father. Greg signed away his parental rights, and the child was adopted by a loving family. My divorce was expedited given the circumstances. The judge was particularly unsympathetic to Melanie's claims given the fraud evidence. Several of their co-conspirators turned state's evidence, revealing even more schemes and frauds. As for me, I started a new chapter. I launched my own cybersecurity consulting firm, specializing in fraud detection and prevention. The inspiration for this came from my experience, and business is booming. I bought a beautiful house in Vermont's Northeast Kingdom, adopted 2 rescue dogs, a German Shepherd named Max and a Belgian Malinois named Luna, and started rock climbing as therapy. I won't pretend it's been easy. Some nights are still hard, and I'm working through trust issues with my therapist. But I'm healing. The dogs help, there's something therapeutic about their unconditional love and loyalty. The greatest revenge wasn't the public exposure or even the criminal charges, it was reclaiming my life and finding happiness on my own terms. Every morning when I wake up to Max and Luna's excited faces, ready for our sunrise hike, I'm reminded that sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted leads you to what you really need. TLDR, wife committed paternity fraud and multi-million-dollar corporate fraud, so I exposed everything during her baby shower in front of all our friends and family, leading to multiple arrests and international criminal investigations. Edit, thank you for all the awards and support. For those asking, yes, I'm still in therapy, and it's helping a lot. And no, I don't regret doing it so publicly. Sometimes, the truth needs an audience. Edit 2, since many are asking about Max and Luna, yes, they're the goodest boy and girl. Dog tags in comments. Edit 3, several people have asked about red flags I missed. I've started writing them down and might make a separate post about warning signs of corporate fraud in relationships. Let me know if that would be helpful.